Welcome back to another episode of Motivate with Coach Camp. Of course, I am your host, Coach Camp, and we are down here in the bulbously beautiful studios of SRP with Mr. Derek Michaud. So jumping right into this week's topic, I want you guys to understand something. This is an exciting moment for a lot of reasons. Not that any of them are less exciting than the others, but I got news for you. I live in the moment. And right now, this moment is awesome. Today we have not one but two guests, and one of the guests is a very special guest because this whole idea kind of came about from this individual, and it's going to be his first time getting to tell his story fully and here on a podcast, which is kind of cool. So if you guys have tuned in every week, like I know you guys have, millions and millions of viewers constantly tuning in, sending me messages, which I absolutely love and adore, and I thank you so much for. Last week we had Mr. Tyler Young on. Tyler was sharing with us kind of the person that he is, how he became that individual, and so much of the trials and tribulations that he used to build the person that he became. Along the way, there was a backstory, and the backstory wasn't even really kind of leaked to you guys until the end. And there's a reason for that, because today I have Mr. Tyler Young back in studio. You'll notice he's wearing some of the same outfits, possibly. That's okay. That's called creativity of the video. It's fine. Mr. Tyler's back with us, still from Atlanta, and today we have his brother, Ryan Young, from Oregon, that has flown in, and both of them are going to be my guests. If you remember at the end of our story, he was sharing with you guys about some of the trials, tribulations, some of the struggles that his brother went through, and we are going to get into all of that. We're going to get to talk to Ryan, get his full story, and find out where he is today and how things are going. So at this time, what I would like to do is to bring in my guests today, Mr. Ryan and Tyler Young. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great. Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, man. So what do you think, man? Studio's pretty nice?
It's really nice.
Yeah, I didn't do any of this.
Yeah.
My producer, Derek, does all these things. He's
a great guy.
I use his stuff. He really is. He's an awesome dude. Tyler, can you believe it, man? You're here with your brother?
I'm very happy.
Back for round two.
Very happy.
Yeah, this is good stuff.
And that was good. He came right out of the gate firing.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did.
I have no doubt this is going to be epic. And look, I'll put it this way. Anytime I get tons of, and I get lots of comments from all over the world, people sending me stuff. I want you to know every one of these things is going to be highlighted. I'm going to try to remember to send as many of them to you as I can, okay? I promise. Keep me to that because I forget stuff.
Sounds
I have
good.
forgotten. But yeah, the people just really absolutely adore my guest. And it's not me. So it's not me because I just talk too much. My wife will tell you that. So Tyler, as we cut out the last episode, we were blending into all things your brother, how this has impacted you, how it's created a moment of who you are, where you've come from. And so that's really where we're going to start. We're going to dive into this part, and then we're going to blend it into what all Ryan went through, relating it to your story, how he's managed to be able to get to the point he is today and where he's headed to in the future. And I actually found out some interesting information last night that's exciting. We'll share that for the end that you apparently didn't know a lot about until last night. So this is great news, man. This is some good stuff. So let's start with, you're a kid. And how old are you? Because you said at the time, whenever we left last week, you said that you were still in utero when your mother found out that your older brother, which he's your older brother by how much?
About almost 3 years.
So around about 3 years older than him.
And he was 23 months when he was diagnosed. So
not quite 2 years old.
I was in the early stages of growth.
First trimester.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And your mom is told that he is diagnosed with leukemia, correct?
Acute leukemia.
Yeah. And so obviously you're 3 years old. No memory, I'm sure, of what that meant or anything, would you say?
Not really.
I mean, I wouldn't.
Not even two.
Not even two yet whenever you were diagnosed. Yeah, exactly. So clearly not something that you're going to remember in that moment by any means. But can you tell me in the early stages when you had memories of anything? Because there may be some stuff, obviously the diagnosis wouldn't make sense to you too, but how old were you when you started realizing that there was an issue or that you had to constantly find yourself at a doctor's office?
I'm not sure of the quite age of what it was, but it was when I was not feeling well and going to the hospital a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whenever y'all's mom, let's say her, and y'all's mom was told this information, I mean, what did they share with you, or have they shared with you what their lives were like in that moment?
I'm so glad you said it that way, because I want to just put one disclaimer out. We are still learning. It is an incredibly sensitive subject for my mom.
And how many years has it been?
I'm 38. He turned 40 last year, so it's
almost
been
4
38
decades.
years.
Yeah.
And I get more stories from my dad and I've been asking questions, but it is very hard for both of them to tell the story of that time in their life because it was admittedly a very dark time for them.
Mm-hmm.
And we can share today what we've learned, but there's so much more to still learn.
Okay, because that's the one thing that I think is going to be unique to probably every person, how they receive that information, how they put together their path forward, because that's the hard thing. You start trying to figure out, well, what do we do next? And the answers are never fast enough. And I understand that because you want to know, how do we get to a better place than we are today? So you don't have any memory of this really at that age, but at some point down the road, you're going through treatment. What is the prognosis? Because I know you shared a little bit about that. What is the prognosis for you early whenever they diagnose you with leukemia?
I had 5% chance of living.
So at that point in time, and this is in the 80s?
Well, this is in the 80s. And when they gave a 5% chance of living, that was just for the experimental treatment that he was receiving for a bone marrow transplant. And that was, quoting my own father, he said that was because that's what insurance required. The actual doctors had no idea. And I was always taken back when Facebook became mainstream that nurses and doctors that treated Ryan looked for my parents and found them because they were still curious. How is Ryan doing 20 years later? Because his life expectancy is unknown with the amount of chemotherapy and treatments that he received at such a young age. The doctors who are in their 90s now are still curious and just so proud of Ryan.
So leukemia obviously it's a pretty common cancer, I would say. A lot of people are diagnosed with that every year. And in the 80s, I would imagine we're a lot further along now here in 2024 for treatment. Do you have any idea? Because I actually wish I would have looked up the stats on that. What are the stats for people that are early diagnosed for recovery?
Well, in the 80s, they didn't have the stats for
No, they didn't in the 80s.
And in the 80s, it was a death sentence at the time. And for most of everyone that we grew up around, it was a death sentence.
Yeah.
We were in the hospitals a lot for many years. And, they were told to take him home. They tried everything with Ryan. And he did defeat it. We'll get into that. For a moment, he did, and it relapsed. He had a relapse. And so ultimately, my parents were told, enjoy the time you have with him. Take your son home.
And this was before you were born?
I was born because he went through the first, let's just get into the story as we know it.
Yeah, let's try to build from the moment where it's diagnosed to how does this thing progress and what is the pathway? And then what was your parents going through that you guys could know?
I will say our parents did a really good job trying to shield us, especially me and my younger brother, from the harsh reality of what Ryan was facing. And they made it as fun as they possibly could. But my parents had a complete change their life. And as a father now, I've broken down many times just thinking how proud I am of my parents for what they went through and overcame. Because I looked at my son when he was 2 and this is when that journey began for them. And I couldn't imagine the distraction to my life goals that I'm pursuing. Because as a caring parent, which my parents were, everything shifted.
Sure it does.
To their son. And then to have another son on the way, another kid on the way.
It's life-changing in itself.
Yeah, and then 16 months later to bring a third child into the world. It was just so much pressure on my parents. My mom had to quit work. My dad had to take every odd job, everything he could get. He was working every weekend. He was a fireman at the time, and you got 24 on, 48 off, and he made the most out of every moment that was off. He built neighbors' fences. He built trailers. He was a welder when he was young. He had a lot of skill set. And so he did everything and anything that he could to make money. At one point we were living in Seattle for Fred Hutchinson's hospital. And my dad was just visiting on weekends when he could. They had to deed their house back to the bank because they could not afford the payments. They did have a lot of fundraisers, which my dad found really challenging. His approach to accepting money was a journey for him to be willing to accept it, but the treatment was very, very expensive.
Yeah, sure. And so do you have an idea, because memory maybe not, but do you know what they were doing for you at early diagnosis? Did you immediately start chemotherapy or what was the treatment process?
I don't quite remember the actual process, but nobody down here in Oregon could help. So we moved up to Seattle.
Yeah.
And they had a hotel for sick kids. So you got to know everybody in there. And then at one point I was in the hospital for 6 months.
How old do you think you were at that time? Were you still like a toddler?
Yeah, 4 or 5.
Okay, so you were young kid then.
Because like it's a 2.5 year process.
Okay, that's
each
kind of what I was wondering. So like whenever the diagnosis comes out, obviously there's a treatment path on that, and so I don't know how much you guys know about it or
recovery on top of that.
Sure.
So it was like 8 when I was all done, but I was still growing and getting over all that treatment of chemo and radiation. I lost my hair like 4 times and spinal taps, and had catheters because they're always giving me shots. I mean, it was not fun.
So I think this might be a point that is worth saying for parents out there that are in a similar circumstance where they have a small child that has been diagnosed with any version of cancer. How much of those early 4 to 5 year old from 5 earlier, the treatments and stuff, how much of that is a scarring memory to you?
There's quite a bit.
Quite a bit you remember?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When they bend you over and hold you down, they're stabbing your
You have
spine.
those moments. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Riding little bicycles in the hospital.
Did you understand at that time the significance of your illness?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay. And so for you, I know just knowing your brother, when you got, older, obviously at some point you realized this, but you're 3 years younger than him.
Yeah, and for a long time, I just remember the ice cream. I remember Bub and I had free
ice cream.
Yeah, ice cream. Yeah.
Lots of ice cream.
Yeah. No, they have the yogurt machine in the hospitals, right? And they do to this day. And Bub and I were just young, energetic, individuals. And my mom brought us everywhere. She has said, I would never let you guys out of my sight. She was so focused on us. And the whole hospital would just let us have free reign in the unit. And we'd run around and we can go get our own ice cream. We go back there and they would obviously have to do it because we were too short.
Yeah.
But we ate so much ice cream. So we were just a ball of sugar.
Were you getting to eat the ice cream?
I did.
Okay, I was going to say, man, it's like, man, I'm up here doing treatment. You guys are partying. What's going on? So you got the ice cream as well. So that's good. But how much time do you think y'all were spending?
All the time. Like we were in the hospital. It felt like every single day. That was our world. I say I was born in the hospitals, but I didn't leave because of Ryan's story. We were there, and they had a play unit. So we'd go in and play. I have a lot of memories of all the kids rolling around. I don't know what they're called, but they're rolling around with their IV bags. And, and Bub and I are playing with them. And I'm a big ball of energy like you today. And I have associated that back to being in those hospitals where it was dark. It was dark times. There was a lot of unknown, a lot of scared people, and a lot of scared kids. And Bub and I kind of grew up walking, talking to these individuals. And we I think part of my mom, as I said, built confidence. She tried to keep us uplifted. And so we were there. I remember just being fun. I was trying to have fun, and I tried to make other kids smile. And that's really what I focus on today, is just trying to lift people's spirits to be happy with who they are. And a lot of that was growing up in the hospital. It became real for me when Brandon died.
Yes. And that was another kid that was in the hospital?
Yeah, that was a kid we got really close with. He was 8 or 9 years old when he passed.
How old do you think you were at that time?
I actually did the math. I was talking to my mom just recently. I was 4. Okay.
You have memory of that. Wow.
Yeah. I did not think I was that young. I thought I was older because I remember it. And Brandon was very similar diagnosis as Ryan, is slightly different, but they took a different treatment path. See, back then they didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah.
And so they were giving treatment paths just kind of randomly per kid. So Ryan had a path, and Brandon's path was put him in a bubble. He was the bubble boy. It was hours for his parents to be able to get suited up and to go in and see Brandon. And all the interactions that we ever had with Brandon was through glass. And my mom would read stories for hours because we were there. So,
you were an intricate part of the entire hospital.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
And your younger brother, I mean, he's right on your heels. So if you're 4 years old and he's 3-ish, that's 2 young people trying to keep up with a sick child as well. Your mom is an angel.
She won Mother of the Year. She got a lot of awards for her effort. And so I almost feel bad to this day. I love you, Mom, because I spend so much of my time with my dad. Like, as a business owner, he's an entrepreneur. I spent a lot of my time talking with him as an adult, less with my mom. Mm-hmm. But as we grew up, she was everything to us. And we gave everything to everyone around us that we could. And Brandon was the person I remember the most, getting to know, and I was only 4. It blows my mind,
Yeah.
that was the age, because Brandon, I recently got this story, so I know it to be accurate, because I was just curious when I had the memory, because I'm going to tell you my only memory. And my memory, I honestly hate this memory. And it came up because I did the American Great Speak Off thing. And you had to write a 60-second bit. And I normally just go. So I'm sitting there reading this 60-second bit and trying to tell Ryan's story. Like, what am I even going to talk about? So I had the morning to do it. And this memory came up. And man, I cried hard. It took me hours to get through to a 60-second. And I was like literally angry with this memory. And I realized that was the first time I experienced death, and when Ryan's illness became serious to me.
I was about to ask, did that make a moment where you saw how real your brother's situation was?
That was the moment when I realized how real it is.
It is incredible at 4.
Yeah, 4. Ryan, wow. My mom, I remember my dad built a log home, and it's hard to visualize, but if you walked in, you have the main block of the house, and then you have 2 wings, essentially. And the kids have 3 bedrooms on one side. My parents have almost the equal size room on the other side. Very intentional. Dad did a good job getting some distance from one. Even though, I got some memories there too. As a kid, you can walk in on the wrong time. But,
well, I guess so.
And so
extra walls.
I woke up. My mom came back from Seattle, and I'm curious if Ryan remembers any of this, but she came back from Seattle, and I had not seen my parents cry. I had not felt their fear of his situation. And I heard Mom come in, and I knew she was going there to see Brandon, because she got a phone call that said, Brandon, I didn't know this at the time, but Brandon's not going to make it. He's asking for you.
Oh, wow.
For my mom.
Yeah.
And so she immediately drove up to Seattle, and I just knew she was going to go see Brandon. And so when she came home, I was awake, or I woke up and I walked down the hallway, and I could just hear my parents when she walked in. And she just walked in, and I just heard her drop to her knees and start crying. And I could hear them, and I stopped. As a 4-year-old, I'm going to see my mom, and I remember stopping and just listening. And she's bawling, and I hear her say the words, Brandon's gone.
Wow.
And I honestly don't remember anything from that moment on. I remember walking down the hallway, hearing that, and then my memory just stops. I don't remember walking out talking to them. I don't remember what they said. With her memory, she had helped me remember it. So I'm telling you, this has been the memory I've carried through life.
Sure.
And thinking about it that day, it was just hit. And it's one of those things where, I could just cry and tear up on, and it's one of those things you can't heal. I'm big about emotional healing. You can bring people on the show who've been war veterans. You've talked to a lot of people. My life has been trauma, mental trauma, sadness, not for myself in a lot of situations, but a lot of people I'm around. So my specialty, I'd like to think, is just healing oneself. And this is the one where it really began for me, and I hate it. I really don't like that memory, because it isn't one I'm going to heal. I don't want to heal that memory. That is just loss. And
That's a loss.
It's just loss. You just have to accept loss and learn from it. And I don't know if you remember when Brandon passed, but
I do.
I'd love to hear your side of it.
It was the same story you just said. Mom came home, and after she met with Brandon and the family, and she just lost it.
Yeah, I think that speaks to the community you guys built.
Yeah, can you tell more that night? I told what I remembered. Were you standing in the hallway? I don't remember.
Were you at the house?
It was at the house.
Yeah.
And I remember the entryway, and she told us what happened, and we're all standing around crying. Because we had, 5-6 years with him and his family. And
I was about to ask how long y'all had been friends with him.
Well, Ryan and them longer than me, because they probably met early. But
yeah.
No, now
we're best buddies, and your best buddy dies.
And you're 7.
Yeah.
That's not something 7-year-olds should have to go through.
And you're going through what you're going through, and then find out he had a different kind of cancer, leukemia, which you don't make it.
Yeah.
You don't have a chance with that. But it's brutal.
Yeah.
So we experienced loss, and it really got triggered for me right at your 40th birthday last year, because Kip came over and we interviewed some people, and Kip started talking to me. I'm sitting behind the camera. He says, man, it just amazes me how much death you experienced. And here I am. I've only lost 2 grandpas, and I actually, as an adult, think I've had a really good life. I haven't experienced a lot of loss. And it wasn't until just last year that Kip connected that No, I actually experienced a lot of loss. I was just a kid
Mm-hmm.
when I experienced all that loss, because there were a lot of other people in the cancer unit. And it wasn't just cancer, but a lot of people with illnesses and that didn't make it. There was a lot of people we met, and Kip knew a lot about that. So it's an interesting upbringing when you grow up around a lot of loss,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of sadness, and have to come out of it with a positive outlook on life. And this is where I give you so much credit to my life. And we'll talk about it, but Bub and I, my other brother, we've had really good lives. We're good looking people. We've built businesses. We've been married. We have children. And and Ryan's path has been hardship and medicine and illness and things that Bub and I just have not medically been challenged with things.
Mm-hmm.
So Ryan sees our life, and I always tell you, my life is what it is because of you. If you had died, if your body had given up, I would be a completely different person. My family probably would have separated, right? We would have been a broken family. I would have had an outlook on life that it's challenging. Now, I do think a lot of people face that, and I think that their journey is different than mine, and they find their path to a good place. But because you survived, we were already in a good place. We had survival mindset. Anything was possible. So we came into the world, Bub and I, thinking we could accomplish truly anything that we wanted to.
I mean, from your
Ryan
earliest
proved
memories,
it.
You're seeing your oldest brother.
My oldest brother, he
Fight
beat
for his
everything.
life.
And then he had his down times. We'll
Sure.
get into those. But he always, he was just always positive. He's always moving forward.
I was literally about to ask
He
about
knew
his
the
mental
value.
state. Yeah, I literally was.
He knew the value of life at a way that most children didn't, as a sibling didn't. And he understood it better than Bub and I did.
Mm-hmm.
But we watched him navigate life. And I am the person I am because of his story, because of what the hardship God put him through. And now it's such a monumental moment in my life for others to hear Ryan, to see Ryan, because when you go through what he went through and you survive,
Mm-hmm.
we all ask, why? Right? If you lost a child, why? Okay? If you were diagnosed, why? It's a very good question. Why am I blessed with the blessings I have received? Why was I challenged with the challenges I received? They're here to shape us. And we all have a special purpose. All of us have a special purpose. And life's story and actions are molding us for something. And it doesn't have to be anything great.
Yeah.
It could just be an impact to others, because we are molded to be who we are for a little interaction. You've talked about the people you've affected that help save and change their lives, and you don't even know it
That's true.
with your words. So Ryan's story and him sharing it, I personally believe that's his why.
Mm-hmm.
His why is to give hope to everyone that is going through anything similar. And it is also to give hope to those who are not, because even if they're lost their job, if they lack motivation, if they lack a vision, if they don't know what their purpose is, Ryan's story, and I get to say it finally on air, Ryan, you give everyone an example that says, wow, what that guy went through is far harder than what I'm facing today. Yet you work hard, right?
Yes.
You got a big announcement here, what we're going to talk about.
Oh,
like you're
boy.
living a life. And it may not be the life you dreamed of, but you have excelled in what the card of decks you got, right? Because you're
Yes.
still here today.
Yeah. So many things I've got to unpack here. It was great commentary there. Have you done this before? It's outstanding. You really knocked out so many points I have here. So first thing that I want to hit on is obviously there's a sense of community whenever you're going through a troubled time like that. So that's the one pillar I want to throw out there for folks that are going through a struggle in life, whatever that is. It doesn't have to be cancer. It could be any kind of struggle. It could be depression. It could be addiction. It doesn't matter. Find you people that are in the struggle, in the fight, because you will find strength through those around you. Because whenever they're going through something, just like you were doing, you are gaining strength from other people's fight as well as they are on you.
Yes.
And so clearly what you just showed was the fact that you never saw life differently than a person fighting through what would be considered something that could say unfair. You saw that from day one of your earliest memories. And not only was it your brother that you were witnessing fight and struggle for his life that you obviously were connected with, but you saw his friends and the rest of the community around you. And you saw later in life how much of an impact that had on you, which I will say, I think that has a lot to do with the person you are today, maybe more so than everything else we shared on the first episode, in the fact that you now have this person inside of you of appreciation, of understanding. And one thing that I picked up on when listening to your podcast, sir, if you don't mind me saying, Mr. Tyler, was I like the way you flipped the script on a couple of your interviews and you found yourself asking the interviewer questions about themselves. And I think that that actually speaks to the person you are, because you found the value in understanding another person's fight. You wasn't always about Tyler, but it's about Tyler and this other person and how can we blend together and what can I add to the conversation? Because at the end of the day, everybody should have a voice. Ryan, this is where I'm going with you now. So here we are. We found ourselves down this long road of struggle and fight. And as a kid, obviously, you don't even, I mean, it's like we as adults, if you, sir, 38 years old, strong, healthy, with great hair, if you were given something that's monumentally difficult right now in life, you've got so many tools in the toolbox to fight back with. When you're a child, your toolbox is empty.
You don't have anything.
The only thing you have is ignorance is bliss, if you want to look at it that way, because you don't know what you don't know. You have no experiences. You have nothing to judge from. So let me ask you, in your earliest memories, here you are, you truly are in a fight for your life at the age of 2, moving forward. At the earliest parts of your memory, to the struggle with leukemia, where did you find yourself realizing that you couldn't give up, that the next fight was going to be tough, but you're going to have to be tougher than the next fight coming your way? There had to be a point in your life you're like, it's clicking. It's like, I'm in this thing. I got to keep going.
There was no end to it. You couldn't give up.
Right.
Yeah, everybody around you was cheering you on. There was no option of quitting.
Did you have a good support system, I'd imagine? Obviously.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously.
And my mother was number one.
Sure.
Yeah, she did everything, and then my brothers were there, and then my dad would come up and visit us when he could.
Mm-hmm.
But there was no insight to it.
Mm-hmm.
It was day after day after day of getting shots and chemo and radiation and spinal taps, and I got catheters because they gave me so many shots.
Mm-hmm.
I just kept going.
Did you ever think about giving up?
No.
Never crossed your mind. Why?
It wasn't an option.
Did you ever feel like a victim?
No.
Sir, I ask you those 2 questions because your brother tapped on something. He jumped to line number 9.
Yeah,
it's good. It's good that way, buddy.
He's a little quick.
He jumped to 9. He's good. That's good. I like it. Because I wanted to ask you about positivity. How do you stay positive? It's so easy for an adult to feel like,
well, before we
this
go
ain't
positive,
fair.
There was dark times.
Well, I mean, it's not to say that there's not a roller coaster of events, but it can't stay dark and be successful.
Well, how are you positive as a child?
That's what I want to know. That's what I want to know is how did you stay positive as a child when it's easy? Like, I'll put it this way. When I had the flu, I was a really bad sick kid. I was whiny.
Most men get sick and they whine.
I'm whiny.
Yeah.
I was whiny, right? I just got the flu, right?
Exactly.
I need mom to do everything all of a sudden. Where do you find that strength, man? How'd you stay positive?
My mother. She never quit.
Mm.
Always there for me, do everything I needed.
That makes a lot of sense.
And words of affirmation, words of support. You're going to get through this. It was...
Nobody quit on me.
Mm-mm. You couldn't give up. Nobody's giving up on you.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't quit. I had the whole support team that was walking me every day to get through it.
Let me ask you this question because I've been fortunate enough not to have any severe illness. But do you find, and I think that this is probably a baited question because I would say yes, but I want to know your take on it. Do you find that having that positive mindset, hope for the future, helps you stay healthier?
Yes.
100%. Yeah. Ryan has to have hope.
You got to have
honestly.
Hope.
Yep.
It's the next thing in life. You know, Dad and I talk about it, Ryan. This is what we say about you.
Uh-oh.
Ryan needs that next thing in his life, that next thing to look forward to.
I think everybody does, but most people don't have to search for it. When you're in a bad spot in life,
it's
easy to give up.
You know, and life is challenging. And if you are in a position where you can help create hope and create the next thing, like this podcast, his 40th birthday party, you know, it's not that there's a need and he's got his own life, but I'm always going to look for creating that next uncomfortable thing for him.
Thank you.
It's like, thanks for the challenge, bro.
Yeah.
Well, it's mind space. It keeps him busy.
Yeah.
You know, it keeps him busy because there's a lot of still unknowns for Ryan. And he still has, you know, minimal medical, your stomach thing, life, that his body he still works through it. And we stay busy, we stay with hope, and we just make the most out of life now.
Yeah, I think whenever you told the story at the fireside chat, the thing that I picked up immediately from it was how impactful your brother's struggle in life and fight was the person that you are. And so, I wanted to build a little bit of the story we're going to get back deeper into from the adolescent years, but I don't want to step all the way past the moment that you shared at the fireside chat. So, we are at a point, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back from the break, I'm going to ask you about that, which, it's the blood transfusion. We're going to get down that road for a second. Then we're going to come back because I know there's some other parts to the story that surfaced down the road. So anyways, you guys stick around. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
A great opportunity awaits. The Motivate with Coach Camp podcast is now in its second season, and we are excited to say that we have listeners all over the United States and in 19 countries. If you have a company and you're interested in some very affordable advertising, while at the same time supporting a great cause, please go to motivatewithcoachcamp.com and fill out that sponsorship page, and we'll get right back to you. You can support the podcast through donations on Venmo at Motivate with Coach Camp. Thank you to all the listeners and guests who have blessed this podcast with their engagement and involvement.
Welcome back from that quick little break. We were just about to jump into the moment, sir, where we were talking about the blood transfusion. And I think that that's an important, pivotal part of your youth, your adolescence, whenever you were going through some struggle. And I know the story, but I need my listeners and viewers to hear this part.
Yeah, we just got to back up.
Okay.
So Ryan was diagnosed, and as I'm learning it still to this day, that, obviously chemotherapy, but it was experimental. Everything was experimental. Were they targeted, right? Mm-hmm. So he was doing full body chemotherapy radiation, went through 3 rounds of full body, and he was able to defeat leukemia. It did recess, and he went into
How old was he when that happened?
I don't know how old you were. 5?
Okay.
5,
Yeah.
maybe, at that time. And so life was good, right? And then it came back. It came back. Do you remember where it came back?
In my private area?
Oh, dang.
Came back in his testicles.
How about that?
And
how does that, let me ask, how do you find that out again? What happens?
He just gets sick.
Oh, you got sick. Okay.
He's just sick again.
Okay.
Oh, there's signs. Let's go back into it. So we're right back into the hospitals again, right? And now they do targeted radiation. He had targeted radiation, I think 5 times on his body where they're targeting areas in his body. And so he was going through battle. He was on that drug prednisone.
Mm-hmm. Steroid. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes. That made me very large.
Yes.
Yeah. It makes you swell.
He blew up. There's some photos where he's big.
I'm a balloon.
Yeah. No, I know. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. And he was, that you're not supposed to take that for very long.
Right.
How many years do you think Ryan took that for?
Well, let's see. How old were you at the time? 5?
Yeah.
When?
Well, he was diagnosed 23 months. So how many years do you think they had him on the drug?
From that moment forward?
Yeah, just the whole journey.
Oh, wow.
10?
Ryan, do you know how long?
I'd say 5 or 6 years.
Mom told me it was 12 years.
Oh, wow.
That he took that drug.
Holy smokes.
And that drug is a body killer.
Yeah, it's rough on you.
It's rough on your body.
Sure.
Took it for 12 years. It was experimental. They didn't know what would work. And when he relapsed, and then they went through all the radiation, all the chemotherapy, all the blood transfusions, the spinal taps, all of it again, that's when they said, listen, take him home.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what to do. And it was because my mom's perseverance, my dad's perseverance, that they went experimental, and they had to write in because a bone marrow transplant was experimental at the time.
I got to ask you a question on that because I don't want to step past it. So what is that? Is that the right to try or something? What is that whenever you're allowed to do something? Was it FDA approved or how does that work? Okay, maybe I'm stepping into something.
Yeah.
Okay, I just was curious because whenever you're doing experimental things, there's obviously risks that are not known because they haven't been doing it.
Well,
for a
you
period of
already
time.
have a death sentence.
So
you're
it's
already
what do you got to lose?
You have nothing to lose. What you have to do is get insurance to help pay for the experimental treatment.
Okay.
So there has to be a 5% chance of survival, which is why the doctors worked with the family.
Gotcha.
And that was still a journey. My mom was in front of board. She was in front of everyone. She was fighting to get him this treatment. And that's one of the messages we have to say to anyone facing modern medicine today is they're still figuring it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to fight for your treatment because a lot of people in the world take the path of the least resistance. Doctors do too.
Sure.
It is only an opinion. And so my mom was the biggest advocate. My dad had to work. He had to make the money. She was the advocate. She knew it in and out. And to this day, you talk to my dad, he knows a lot. But that was her world, which is why it's really hard for her to talk about, which is why all the information I've learned has come from my dad because it's still something.
Still hard for her to
her to do. I asked for some photos and she was like, she tried to go through it. She couldn't pull the boxes out. And that's just a taste of the everyday and the unknown. I mean, imagine living 5+ years in the unknown. And a lot of people today out there are doing it. The message my mom and dad send is you can parent, you can stay together, and you can survive. And if your child happens to pass, it does not mean it's the end. It's just the purpose. Now, what's the purpose out of that? Because there are a lot of people that are also experiencing it. And the best thing I feel like I can do because of all the hardship I've had is survive through it and thrive. So others can see that it is possible, because when you're in the middle of it, it's hard to see that it's possible. But if you can hear a story of someone like Ryan, then you can just function. And it's one day at a time. That's what my parents.
That's right.
Talk to my dad. I asked him, how did they did it? He said it was just one day.
One step.
They did not look beyond the next day. And they made the most. And this is why I always say I make the most. I travel all over. I make the most out of my life. So much shaped because of you. And then it came down to the bone marrow transplant, and I was 3. So, at that time, I'm 3 years into this journey, and I was 3-something, right, at that time. And both Bubba and I had the requirements to do the bone marrow transplant.
So why was it that they said that was needed?
Why?
They just felt like that if they did that, then it was going to eradicate?
Well, because leukemia was in his blood, as I understand it, right?
Yeah, it is.
So we needed to reset that. And if there was a bone marrow transplant, then you become the blood of your donor.
Okay.
And so he was producing bad blood.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea was if he is producing good blood, then the leukemia would go away. And I matched. Bubba matched. I was a little older, so they had to choose me. And when my mom tells this story, it's hard not to break down and cry, but it's funny.
Yeah.
And she just says it. You have to harm. I mean, those needles are big.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm going to hurt my one child for a chance at saving my other, with no idea if it's going to even work. They didn't even have the protocols figured out at the time. And she tells me I didn't want to do it. So that's when people say, "Oh, you saved his life." So I don't try and take a lot of credit. So I was 3, right?
Yeah.
I was there. And of course, I didn't want a giant needle to stab me in the back.
Right. No doubt.
Still have little scars today from it, 2 of them. And so my mom, and I imagine, I tear up on all this because I think of my son or my daughter.
Sure.
And you have to hold your 3-year-old, 3-something, while they're gassing. And she tells it, I didn't want to. I hid under the table. So she ended up having to hold me while they were gassing me to knock me out, and then immediately rip me out of her arms to immediately go to the procedure. And so my mom is just bawling through the whole experience, even when she told me the story. And then the procedure itself, my mom could not be in the room. She said she couldn't be there. Ryan played Game Boy. I got all this from Dad on a hunting trip. And so Dad was in the room on the day of, and they take the blood off. They go spin the blood, and they bring the blood back. And Ryan, I don't know if you know this side of the story because we're just learning it, but Ryan rejected the blood.
Oh, I didn't know that part.
Yeah, he's thrown up.
Oh, wow.
So, imagine being father of a child, and this is the only way he survives, and he rejects it.
Ryan, do you remember any of that? Any of those moments?
Very little.
Yeah.
Bits and pieces of it. I just had a lot going on.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you weren't necessarily aware that was a Hail Mary of such, kind of, if you want to refer to it in those terms. It's like, well, this could work. There's no guarantees. There's a lot involved. Let's give it a shot.
At the time, I had no idea.
I will say, because I asked that because as a parent too, you're going to shield your kid from as much of the bad part of it, because that goes back to the mental state. If you're putting that in their head, if they understand it, they may end up giving up. And then that's the part where that mental capacity declines.
You nailed it. If you accept defeat as a coach, right?
Yeah.
Think of it that way. If you accept defeat, how long do you last before you're defeated?
It's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
Even when I'm doing anything in life, the moment I allow a crack in the armor, it's over. In war, break the line. It's over. Man, I just dawned this whole thought. Mom's effort to build our confidence and belief in your survival, and dad's 100%, I think, why we were able to achieve it, why you achieved it. And I take that philosophy into life no matter what. I got, as a CEO of a company, there's a mountain of responsibility. And, even right now, I'm super bummed. My phone fell in the ocean in Key Largo for Father's Day when I was down there, and it just died 5 days later. And I just lost all my footage and my photos of a vacation Father's Day, just me and Ryler and Savannah. I'm really bummed about it. I was up 2.5. I didn't sleep last night trying to figure out how I can fix this iTunes
It is
situation.
disheartening. Don't discredit that part. It is disheartening, but yeah.
It is.
But perspective, right?
But I'm not down. I said, okay, what am I going to learn from this, right? So immediately what she taught us is, there is no give up. And that mentality, I think, is what made the difference. And if you're out there facing cancer today, or a friend, you need to show support, or you need to realize that you can just defeat it. And the power of the mind is so strong, right? And man, it just dawned on me. That was it. That was key.
Yeah. The idea that it's your situation right now may not be where you want it to be, but you got to keep fighting, because tomorrow could be the turning point. And the moment you give up, it's over. There's a saying that I've went by many times, about my endurance athletic stuff. And so I use this a lot of times in my own mindset doing Coach Camp stuff is failure is not final until you quit trying. So as long as you're willing to get back up and go again, failure is temporary. And so a failure in a moment, just like with medicine and treatment, it's in the moment. It's not final until you decide you've given up. So clearly earlier we had spoke on this stuff, the mindset, the mental capacity, the understanding that, maybe this isn't what I wanted, but I'm going to keep fighting. I'm not going to give up. That's what keeps you driving forward. And that's actually such a healthy part of life. And I want people to understand, if you're dealing with depression, you're dealing with addiction, you're dealing with something that maybe you feel like you have no idea how to move forward from. This is the part where these are the stories that are cross-relatable. Don't give up. Look for the next thing that can help you. Keep hope going, keep moving forward, and get you a support system, because that's what I've just heard was not just the family, but you guys had a community within the hospital itself, and the ability to keep fighting and keep moving forward was paramount, not just for you, but for others. And when somebody did succumb, like a Brandon, I think that there's another story there too. And you're right that there is a moment of survival of those that have to carry on. One, you're doing that in honor of them, because don't think for a second, if you've lost somebody to cancer or some other kind of tragic event, that they want you to give up. They want you to keep going. That's why they fought so hard to begin with. They wanted to show you the value of life. They wanted to let you understand that this is important, and that's why I'm fighting so hard. And if I did end up dying from this moment, don't let this be the thing that takes you down. Let this be the thing that inspires you to move forward, because that's why we live this earth. That's the purpose, is to inspire one another. And my friend, I promise you, you surviving has molded your family in ways you may never understand. But never think for a second that the loss of your friend Brandon was in vain, because I promise you there's strength there as well. We live for a purpose in this world. And that's what you've done. And your friend Brandon's life was important as well. And he didn't make the survival fight, but in the end, I promise you, he gave strength, he gave perspective, he gave understanding, he gave love. Because in the end, we're all going to have a moment of failure, but it's how hard did we fight? Why is that going to inspire the next generation? And why is it so important? I got news for you. It's so important because that's why we're here. That's why we're here, sir.
Yes.
So Ryan.
Yes.
I know sometimes I get on a coach camper and I apologize. I just feel this stuff come through me, man. It's energy. You give it to me, dog. That and the shirt. I love the shirt. So let me ask you this. So how many years is it that you continue to fight? You have the transfusion, rejected at first. Where do we go from there?
They took the blood off to spin it. Again, they said, let's spin it longer. And 3 hours later, they came back and attempted to, give him the blood transfusion again. And he accepted it. And it was a moment of relief. And it turned out that somebody else was using the machine. It didn't take 3 hours of spinning. And so it was just, I can imagine it's such a drawn out day for my parents of uncertainty.
Ups and downs.
And, my mom not even being able to be in the room, but be there and sitting so long. So we learned a lot of patience, but he accepted it. And that wasn't the end, Coach. No. That's not the end of his journey.
I know. I know. That's just like the next thing.
Honestly, it's just the next thing when Ryan, go ahead.
Yeah. So how old were you at that time? When y'all accepts, you start to move forward. You got the blood transfusion. How old are you then? 7, 8?
He must have been right around 7.
6, 7.
Late 6 or early 7.
I was all done with treatment at 8.
Okay, so you're done. That's where I was going. So you're done with those treatments, chemo, everything, 8 years old.
I'm still recovering from all that.
Mm-hmm. And so then there's like a 5-year remission period. Is that correct? Before they say you're cured? Help me out with that one. I'm not 100%.
We're still learning all this.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, because
enough.
Parents shield you from all this stuff growing up. And
so
we didn't look at Ryan any different growing up. We knew he had a battle, but it wasn't the topic of discussion at home.
And I think that's important. Normalcy. You don't want to feel different. I got that. So where do you go from there? Talk to me about your next phases in life or what you remember.
The next stage was when I was in high school.
Okay.
Freshman year, my eyeball was moving and coming out of its eye socket. And
this just happened like overnight?
Overnight.
I remember sitting at the dining room table. I don't know if you remember this. And it was either dad or mom sitting to my left. And they asked, it's like, is your eyeball moving?
It was moving.
Yeah, it was at a dinner table. And, we sat at a rectangle table. My dad's always on the left. I was on the side. Ryan was always on the end. And Bub and Mom sat on the other side. And I think it was Dad looking straight across. And I think he noticed it. And from that moment, it was a battle all over again.
So it just surfaced. Like it had not been there. It was almost like and then there was a moment.
Yeah.
Okay. And so did you notice anything before they said something?
Yeah.
I mean, like you had visual.
You could see it. Your eyeball wasn't the same as the other one.
And so at this point, you're a freshman in high school, so you're about 13, 14 years old?
Yeah.
14.
So basically 7 years, 6 to 7 years.
Well, in that time, it's not that simple because Ryan doesn't produce testosterone. I mean, when you go through that much chemotherapy, you're killing a lot of your cells. You're killing a lot of your own body and what it can do. So I don't want to just pass on some very challenging years for both my parents and for Ryan that we're still unpacking to understand what they went through.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan has, to get testosterone, which this guy was ripped last year. I'm going to tell you, I blamed it on testosterone, which is not true. He's been taking the same dose his whole life. But, he was ripped last year. You got some abs. You put a photo up if you got some.
Yeah. I'll superimpose it on my stomach later, so that's fine.
Yeah. So there was this window where Ryan was taking steroids to grow because he stopped growing.
Well, not just steroids, growth hormones.
Growth hormones to grow because he stopped growing. His body stopped really developing and from all the treatment. So they now are working on, okay, you have survived, but what does your life look like? Because it's technically a traumatic brain, experience that he went through. So even his mental development and capacity was unknown. His physical capacity was unknown. And so there was, how do you coach? How do you teach? Ryan, there was a struggle in school. There was, how tall can we get him? And then you get to 14 and I remember this conversation and seeing it, not personally at the time, but I remember talking to my parents about it. Like, okay, we have to transition him off height to puberty. How long can we wait? Because you're set with all your peers. And so Ryan is 5'6", which is a great height, quite frankly. They were very pleased with that. My dad is 6'6", and my mom is like 5'9", 5'10". So we were a tall family. And I always like to remind Ryan, because you talk about it a lot, this boy was huge before he was diagnosed. The doctors had him scaled up. He was going to be 6'8". His calves were giant. And, me and Bub are close to 6 feet, like 5'11 and a half, 3/4.
Yeah, sure.
Claim 6 if you're not 6.
That's right. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
I think I've shrunk, but that's another story. We'll talk about that another time. I've gotten older.
But they said we would be 6 foot. So Ryan's always like, I was supposed to be the biggest, like
I was.
But I would say you are the biggest. You are the biggest impact on all of us.
I would agree with that. So then for those 7 years, you're obviously going through some hormone therapy. You're trying to get your systems back in order from the trauma that it's been through to get you healthy. And then here you are, 13, 14 years old, and suddenly there's an eye that is bulging, and you go in, and what do they tell you?
I had a golf ball size tumor right behind my eye.
My goodness. And did you have headaches or anything before
No,
that?
I had nothing.
So no symptoms other than the visual
Yep.
thing. And so then what do they tell you? They're going to have to do a CT. They're going to have to do a biopsy. What do they do?
Well, they did a CT and they found it, and then they decided to cut my jaw off, my upper jaw, and take it out.
Oh, wow. So they cut in, they went in and took the tumor out.
And took the tumor out.
So did they say it was benign?
Yes.
That's good news.
Very great news.
That
Good
was
news.
Good news.
Not the idea that you want to have to go and have a surgery now, but that's good news. So then at that point,
Well, and it wasn't in my brain. It was just in my head.
right.
So less complicated.
Right. So
A
not
little
necessarily invasive into your brain. And so there's nothing to be concerned about on that part. So is that the last time that you had a problem with it?
No.
Okay. I didn't think so. Thought I remembered something about that. So take me down the next part.
My eye started coming back out again, just as the year before. And they learned that tumor was growing on bone.
Mm.
So they cut from one ear to one ear and took out my forehead and took the whole eye socket out and rebuilt it.
Wow.
And
Wow.
then put some plates in me and stitched me up, and
What year was this?
I was 16.
Okay.
So I was 99.
Mm.
Yeah.
So at the age of 16, you've endured tremendous amounts of radiation, blood transfusions. Now you've had one surgery to remove a tumor, a second surgery to remove the bone.
Yeah, another surgery.
What's your mental state now? Because at 16, 17 years old, you not only have this history of trauma from physical aspects, but I'm just going to say it because I have a 15-year-old daughter. You're dealing with adolescence. And I don't know what happens between the ages of 13 and 18, but I know my kids lost their mind. One of them still in the process of the mind is in all directions. What is life like as a teenager at this point? Because clearly you're facing things that are not easy. What's it like with your friends, your family? Are you facing adversity that's adolescent driven? Because I think that's normal everywhere you go.
Well, everybody knew something was going on because I would miss 6 weeks of school 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody found out, and they treated me the same as anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any problem.
That's good. Because I say that because I think it's common. It's unfortunate, but it is common. And I've had episodes on here about bullying. And whenever somebody stands out differently and people don't know them, they don't know their struggle, they don't know their fight, they don't understand that they're a warrior standing in front of them, they will pick on them.
Well,
There's a pause button.
There was issues.
There were
in high
issues.
school, yeah.
Okay.
And we had our buddy, Justin, who was at Barlow High School, right? And so Ryan had a mouth.
Oh.
Okay.
Yes.
He said yes. Well, all right. So it's confirmed.
Okay. You know, Ryan was finally getting going in life.
Mm-hmm.
And when he was 16, it's here we go again. And there was some hardship with that. Like, okay. And Ryan would pick some fights. He would run his mouth to people at
My
school.
man. He
Oh,
knew
yeah.
he was supposed to be the biggest. He already said that.
Dude,
Yeah.
he had that mentality,
Yeah.
for sure. He had a big truck too.
Yeah.
He had it,
Okay.
you know, and but we also knew he had a forehead replacement.
I could not get in any fights.
No.
But Ryan did not care.
Yeah.
No,
No.
I didn't.
No, Ryan was like, "Bring it on! You want to go?" You
Mhm.
know, and these things were happening. You know, I remember Buddy having, across schools talking to some people because we really had to remind everybody that, you can treat Ryan normal, but you cannot treat him normal with, he's going to run his mouth and you can't do anything about it.
Yeah. There's spots that you can't
Yeah.
go. Right.
And
I get you.
so there was a lot of Ryan growing
Mhm.
through anger from what I saw at times. It was just a little bit of anger.
Yeah. I bring that up because I think it's another point that my viewers, listeners would understand if they've been through stuff is kids can be mean. I don't think that's a secret in the world. And so when you have someone that has been through some challenges that they've not been through, rather than kids, and you got to understand too, 13, 14, 15 years old, their mindset's not there. They're not developed enough to understand that, when a person is living a life that's challenged or more, they're going through stuff that you've not gone through, that should be somebody that inspires you. I think a lot of kids are mean. And so I was curious if you ever faced any of that, but it sounds like anytime that came up, the pit bull was coming up also with Ryan. So
Yes.
there was that there. So you weren't going to be a victim ever in your life.
Never.
I love that.
No,
I love it.
And he had a support system. He had
Yeah.
me, he had his brother, we had all of our friends.
Sure.
And so part of the influence of Ryan was, you know, at a young age, like Ryan would pick some fights and me and Bub were right there.
Yeah.
You know, and we had to diffuse the situation.
I was going to ask that, but it sounded like he was handling himself. So yeah, you guys had to be the diffuser.
He got to be the aggressor.
Yeah. And
So
you guys had to be the, all right,
yes.
wait now. I got you.
I learned at a young age to diffuse because there was no fighting.
Mhm.
Like, it's just my mom and dad made that clear. Like, you guys, it's just, there's too much risk.
Sure there is.
And this boy over here was creating a lot of risk. I
Yeah.
remember growing up all through high school.
I was learning.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so I was often there being the diffuser, like, oh yeah, you know, tell them this, you know, remind them of the story,
Yeah.
you know, and say, okay, you know, if you got a problem, it's gonna be you and me, not him and you.
Right.
So let's work through this, you know, kind of situation.
You know, and it's great to have some brothers there. I can relate to this in a lot of ways. My brother.
Well, it just
Yeah.
comes up with the memory that our younger brother and him would get into stuff, and then I'd get in the middle of it, and he knew he couldn't touch me, which pissed him off even more.
So it's like, you know, you leveraged it at
I
times.
did leverage it.
Well,
Was
it's
it
gonna
you
happen.
that broke the broom over my back? It was you.
Was it Bubba or you?
It was you.
Really?
Me and Bub were going at it, and you didn't like it because Bub and I are 16 months apart, so we were going at it.
All the time.
And you came out and you broke that broomstick over my back, and I was enraged, man. And they got away. You remember this? This is when I broke the
I
door.
know.
And then they ran in the house. This is in high school.
Yeah.
They ran in the house. And my dad had, you know, we have a log home, like drop the tree, straight log home that he built. You know,
Chinking in
cabin.
between and the whole thing, huh?
Dude, it is. He learned it all. He
Yeah,
built.
that's awesome.
Yeah, and he skivved it all. He had skivving parties, and only one person came twice. You know, because a lot of
It's a
trees-
lot of
I think
work.
it's called skivving, but
It's well, they're hewing. If they hand hewn it, that's a
Yes.
whole other thing too.
Yeah,
I know.
that's what it
I used to
was.
watch the log cabin
yeah,
builder
you,
people.
you got your
I watch
tool,
them. Mhm.
the handles, and then the blade, and you're just scraping all the
Hand
bark
hewn.
off.
Yeah, yep. And so he invited everybody over for a party. And it's like, all right, everybody grab one. We're going to do all these logs. Anyways, I punched that door. I punched it so hard because I was so mad. And they got away. And I put knuckle marks in this wood door. It split. And I heard it crack. Boom, I hit it. And I felt the door weaken. It was a heavy door. Bro, all my anger, gone. Oh my gosh, Dad's going to kill me.
Yeah.
You know, you walk away, and many years later, and then if moisture got in, it swelled up, it wouldn't close. I was in deep, deep trouble from that. And I blame him.
Yeah.
Because me and Bub, we wrestled all the time. We
Sure.
were fine.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
when it hit that moment that it needed to be a little diffused.
Well, if you watch WWE, what do they use? You know, folding chair or something. You were just natural instincts.
Yeah, but I couldn't go after him.
Yeah.
Like, so we
That-
never.
Yeah, exactly. You
Yeah,
couldn't
it
go
was-
after me.
Yeah.
You know, we definitely treated Ryan normal. Like, we wrestled and stuff, but there was a degree. You always had to have control. You couldn't lose control. Like, Bub and I could lose control. We could be, you know, we're only 16 months apart, so we were able to, you know, we never throw bows with each other because
Apparently, you got shot with an arrow once, but that's another story.
well,
that was in the other
Bubba
episode.
shot me.
Bubba shot you.
Yeah, with the bow.
He did you too.
Sounds
Yeah.
like this dude's a great marksman. See, you're gonna go bow hunting. You want Bubs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know
Bubba.
what? I shot Bub in the eyeball right here with a blow dart, though. I got him with that, and my dad broke those blow darts too.
Yeah, he threw those away.
Yeah.
Well, if
Hey, we got them back for Christmas like 2 years later.
We did.
They were shortened up.
if I ever get a tribe going and I need some people that are warriors, I know where to go. I'm just gonna get the Young family.
Yeah, young family is a
You
good
guys got
family.
my back on that one.
Very good example.
So I was asking because I have a nephew that's autistic, and by all accounts, he's a normal kid, but he has his differences. And I've had to step in a little bit with my brother to help diffuse things, because that's a big part of what I want people to understand too, is treating people with respect goes well beyond the idea that you should just do it, but it's an impact on that person, or it can be an impact on that person's life. Sounds like to me you had yourself handled, but not everybody is like you, sir. Some people will let that also affect them just as bad as the health illnesses you had, and it can develop a mental illness. So I wanted to touch on it, but it sounds like you had a great support system and you were ferocious yourself, which is not a bad thing.
Yeah, but that's an anger that you have to work through.
It is.
And you did.
Yeah.
I did work through it.
So how did you work through it?
Hmm.
You know, what was the turning point for you where your life became better?
When I met Jesus.
And how old were you at that time?
28.
28 years old. So all this time you've been through all these things and you never blamed God.
No.
That's awesome. You know, a lot of people go that route too. They go that route. So you found the strength that you needed to carry on through the rest of your life.
Yes.
So whenever you got saved, and did you see a difference in your life at that point too? Because it sounds like you're already pretty positive. A lot of people use that as like, hey, this was a changing point in how I saw life, but it sounds like maybe.
That made me understand what I went through. Because he was molding me into what he wanted.
Wow.
And then I went to mission trips, volunteered with the church door and cooking and ushering. I knew I found my purpose was serving other people.
That's beautiful, man. And so it was there. Was it there where you met your next step that we're about to talk about?
I did meet somebody there. I did.
Yeah. So you see how things come into your life whenever all of a sudden the doors are open. So talk a little bit about that, because you shared that with us at the rendezvous as we were eating some barbecue. And if I'm not mistaken, sir, you were caught by a little bit of surprise. Am I wrong? Did you know that was happening next?
I had been warned.
Okay. So there was an idea.
Not by him, though.
Okay. So you meet somebody and talk about that real quick, because you got big things in your life now.
I do. I met a younger lady named Amber, and she had gone through a trauma relationship, and I seen what happened to her, and I just felt compelled to help her. So the first year was just being her friend and helping her come out of a traumatic, not so friendly relationship. So I brought her from really low in her life, and I said, don't idle me. Put Jesus first. I'm here to help you walk through the path that you need to get back to kind of normal. And then 4 years go by, we take a whole year of marriage classes, and I just recently asked her to marry me.
And that was 2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And so...
Yeah, so I was surprised because Bubba texted me, hey, did you know your brother's getting engaged today?
Yeah.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
You know, because he'd been toying with the idea for a long time.
I mean, 5 years you've been with her.
Yeah.
Yep. And so he didn't even tell me.
What's up, man?
Well,
Yeah,
I was waiting to tell you here.
Yeah, like it was on Facebook, man.
I love it.
Well,
Yeah, I was like, and then we didn't know because Bub and I were on the phone because we worked together.
Yeah.
Around like 3 o'clock, and we were like, or 6 o'clock, I don't remember. Bub tells me, he's like, well, it should have already happened. Like if it was going to happen, it already happened. We haven't heard anything.
Yeah.
So it must have not happened. And then as we're on the phone, he gets the text from Ryan like, hey, I did it. We're engaged. So I learned immediately. So I turn around, I text him immediately, and he's like, whoa, that was fast.
Yeah. Social media does that to people. But I like the fact that you try to sell him on the idea you were saving it for the show.
Yeah, I did.
I like that. I like it. So I wish that it would have went that way. I wish you truly had no clue.
Yeah, but Amber put it on Facebook.
I know.
Well, yeah.
You forgot about that part. Like, it was going to get out there. No woman's going to hold that back just so you could surprise us on the show.
A couple days later, yeah.
Yeah. If you could have only thought ahead and been like, hey, look, we got to keep this on the down low. So just text message your people.
She was too.
She got to tell people.
She was too excited.
I get it. I do get it.
She was excited. And as you said, Amber, I've gotten to know her too because she's part of the family now. And, they were friends. Like they really built this relationship and then fell in love. And then love became marriage. And then maybe adopting children.
No. I adopted yours.
Skirp. Hard break on that one. Well, I tell you what, sir, I think you are a testament to what life is worth, why you should keep fighting. The bigger prize in life is not always, what you can accomplish, but it's what you can help others accomplish. You've showed this in every aspect that you've went through. And now here you are being rewarded in the end with what I haven't met Amber, but I would imagine it's going to be a beautiful, long relationship. And hey, I guess if you don't adopt, it does sound like you got a couple kids over there. He can.
Yeah, well, we got 5 nieces and nephews that he has.
Yeah,
so
he's got a network.
Now Ryan turned 40 last year, and I want to point out that was a huge milestone for him in life. Turn 40, so we put on a really big party for you last year, didn't we?
It was very large.
Yeah, and we had to celebrate and.
For 3 days.
3 days.
It was, it was a 3 days. We had a band. We had
That's awesome.
a giant obstacle courses for kids too and adults. It was an event. There was definitely over 200 people that came through over those 3 days to see Ryan, and doctors and nurses and a lot of people that grew up with us.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was really cool to bring everyone together to highlight Ryan. And the reason I share that with you right now is to highlight that, for me, Ryan gives me the perspective of how valuable life is and how short it can be, because I have not faced terminally ill health
circumstances.
Issues, right?
Yeah.
I got a knee and a shoulder. We all got some issues that happen eventually because we're not spring chicken anymore. And I realized that in the last 5 years quite a bit.
It's going to happen.
But life is short. You don't know when it's going to end.
True.
And I've heard that since Ryan was young. We just didn't know. And every day is truly a blessing. And to bring you on the show here, for you being willing to come and tell your story yourself from your words, which in the next episode in the future, it's going to get a lot more words out of him. You got to give this guy credit. He has never done this before.
Never.
Ever. And I'm sure he's got a lot of things he wants to go home and ask mom and dad to get educated on now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe get them to tell you, because it's hard to get the whole story. Because I'd love for you to learn the story, because you went through so much more than you even know that you went through. And you keep overcoming everything. You're reminding me that life is short, that I have to cherish every day, and I have to cherish my time with you and my time with everybody that I love, and the time of impact that we can have, because you impacted me, and I like to impact other people, and you impact people, and everybody impacts everybody. Even that girl we met last night who was living homeless left an impact on us, even though she didn't have any magical words, but it was a reminder of
people have struggles, man.
People have struggles, and the choices they face, and what difference it can make when you have that one moment, that breaking moment, and you get the word of support, in whatever form that comes, in that one moment, how quickly it can change your life.
Absolutely. And
you surviving have given me a mentality that I'm going to survive everything. It doesn't matter until the end, right? So I don't live with a fear that this won't work out. And however it works out is however it was meant to work out.
Accepting.
And you avoid that depression, that anxiety, that fear when you just approach life with, this is how it's supposed to be. Like I use the example of losing those photos. Hey, that's how it's supposed to be. You know what I learned? Immediately make sure I get on Wi-Fi, because I travel a lot and I don't get on the Wi-Fi, so my phone doesn't sync to iCloud. So now I learned just a small lesson, reminder everyone, sync to Wi-Fi daily, because you never know when your phone's going to stop working,
Right.
And it's supposed to be able to go 30 feet underwater, but whatever.
Yeah.
So a lot of lessons that this man teaches. I'm proud of you for coming on this show, for coming here, being part of this experience. I definitely teared up a handful of times just being a part of this moment with you, remembering it through your words. I appreciate you sharing it. I hope the listeners liked it. And I encourage everyone to follow Ryan's story, because it's my personal mission to help him share his why. And I think it's had such a profound impact on me and what I've created in life and the people I've affected. And I wouldn't be this person if it wasn't for this guy right here.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I want you to continue to share this story. Please.
It's beautiful, wonderful, awesome family. Ryan, what would you like to leave my listeners with?
Don't give up.
That is the lesson that you have taught everybody, my friend. Leading by example.
Exactly.
Well,
and helping others.
Yeah, and you and I could take a lesson from him right there.
Yeah.
We talk too much.
Well, there's no doubt.
Yeah,
there's no
you
doubt.
guys drowned me.
It sounds almost as though you have been hanging out with my wife.
You how many people in? You got some words? Don't give up. It's like, dang, I could have made that a 2-minute presentation. So learn from that.
Well, so that's what he's left some in the tank. So when he comes back down the road to give updates, you'll have more words then. You didn't use them all up.
Yep,
my wife keeps counting on every time I come to the studio. She's like, come back with no words left. And I'm like, I'll probably have at least 1,000. So I use a lot of words.
You think your wife would love that? Because, there's the data that shows 10,000 words a day. I think you have 20.
At least. And, I got to be honest with you, she's tired of all of them. So God bless her. Well, look, I can't thank you guys enough. To say I'm humbled by you coming and sharing your story is just an understatement. It absolutely is. I'm so excited, glad, thankful, thrilled. If anything, the trip to Tulsa, Oklahoma has yielded opportunities to meet amazing people like yourself, like your brother, and so many other entrepreneurs that are out there. And so to that, I would say this to you guys. When you have an opportunity to do something, step out of your comfort zone, move forward, have faith, keep trying, keep working, never doubt for 1 second that what you're doing does absolutely matter. You can impact somebody else's life every single time. Thank you guys. Thank you to my listeners. Continue to tune in. Go to my website, motivatewithcoachcamp.com, subscribe to my YouTube, and until next time, Coach Camp out.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not